All right, so today we're here with Benji Sawyer of Sawyer Solutions. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of who you are, what do you do, and who do you help?
Sure. So I'm Benji Sawyer, Sawyer Solutions. We're based out of Birmingham, Alabama. I'll try and talk slow for your listeners. We kind of started life as a traditional kind of MSP, which if you don't familiar with that phrase, I don't know how much jargon you use, right? And I outsource IT provider. And so when we still do that, we still have the traditional, we help keep your computers patched and updated and all kind of stuff. Like a lot of forward-looking, I think, versions of us, like I know you are as well, we're moving more into the helping businesses actually, I'm going to say, survive the coming wave of AI automation and helping them actually start driving outcome to the bottom line, which is fun. I actually have a background in computer programming. It's what I used to do with custom software for big Fortune 500 companies, and now I get to do this for small, medium-sized businesses and actually analyze their business processes, find the things they should stop doing, or things help them figure out what they should be doing better and how to do it better, and then where AI and automation actually fits into their actual business in a smart way, not just running OpenClaw on some device, which that may not age well.
Yeah.
But at this point in time and today, OpenClaw is a big thing, and a big splashy news thing, but it's really, really risky from a business point of view.
Yeah.
And helping businesses understand what's a good risk, what's a bad risk, and start to position themselves so they can, either grow and keep the same number of headcount, or possibly in some scenarios, reduce the number of headcount they have and stay the same size. Either way, drive profit to actual bottom line, help those business owners who've just kind of given up about where they are and what kind of money they can make, and realize that it doesn't have to stay that way. It actually can now go forward and not just have to linearly scale your staff. You can actually grow your business in a significant way without actually having to add headcount. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Is there a specific business industry or a certain type of customer that you love working with?
So yeah, I love working with closely held businesses where the founder's still involved and involved, not necessarily on the day-to-day stuff, but still involved, right? At least strategic level and stuff. So we don't really go after big clients. We, the kind of, up to 60, 70 computers is where we kind of have our sweet spot. Once you get too big, it actually becomes so complex that it's difficult to wrap your arms around it.
Yeah.
And everything. And so businesses have kind of moderately complex processes. Honestly, generally not most healthcare businesses, because they see themselves as just living inside the EMR. But things like, kind of like somewhat similar CPAs or law firms or any kind of business that actually has a service delivery mechanism that is highly technology related, and they understand the value of the time involved, right? So that they can see the clear ROI of, okay, if I can do this with 20% less effort, that's going to drive extra, things like that. So more mature, honestly, I prefer businesses that run on EOS.
Right.
Or at least, if we introduce them to EOS, we're like, oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Not that most of our businesses do, but we have found, as I'm sure you have as well, the businesses that run on EOS generally are easier for us to interface with.
Yeah. A little more mature and how they handle everything.
Yeah, but everyone starts somewhere. So I'm also happy to take businesses that want to get better, want to improve, and help bring in people. It may not be me, I know EOS implementers. I can bring the right one to the table or whatever, or help them understand and grow, and however that kind of looks like.
Yeah. So what is the most preventable IT disaster that you see that happens to companies?
Signing bad contracts with bad providers.
Love that.
It's not necessarily the traditional one, but it's one I see all the time. And once again, I have nothing against long-term contracts. I know you do long-term contracts, and there are a ton of providers out there that do good long-term contracts. But we both also know there's a lot of ones that do bad versions of that. And can really, there's no performance metrics, there's no escape clause, and that honestly I've seen lead to significant downsides in the business, because your risk is higher, they're not addressing their risk, you can't afford to to buy out the contract or whatever, and so having these IT providers out there that are all about just locking you in. So there's one in our market who told someone that I know who's a vendor of our space.
Yeah.
Their stated business goal is to get customers in long-term contracts and service them as little as possible without getting sued.
Oh, wow.
And they told a vendor this, and the vendor's like, hey, by the way, and I believe that those companies do exist, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's weird, they exist in every industry. It's not just ours, right?
Yeah.
But this is my industry, and I'm passionate about it. So that's actually I think probably the biggest one in kind of a general risk is not reading your contracts appropriately, not understanding the risks involved in entering that contract. Because these days, most people are wanting a 3 to 5 year contract for things. And that's a long time to be locked into a company that's not doing what you want to do. You know, I've experienced that with my own business in a marketing sense, which you know about, and I won't say it on camera, but like, you know, you burn a lot of cash, and you hopefully learn a valuable lesson. But that's a preventable mistake.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right, and that's an interesting one. You know, that is preventable with a little bit more due diligence on the front end.
Yeah.
You know, with understanding who you're going to work with, what their performance is,
and just like literally sit down and read the contract terms. And I mean, these days with AI, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Like literally, you should have, like, I know I do. You know, I'm using Claude right now. Once I get that maybe date, you know, whatever, because I was using OpenAI a year ago. You know, but I mean, and I have a project in there, and it's my contract review. You know, and I put terms of service, things you would never bother reading in the past because you're just going to click through it. I shove them all in there now, just in case to see, because I can, right? I couldn't afford to have a lawyer review those in the past. Now, for something like an MSP contract, IT provider contract, like you might definitely want to get a lawyer involved, but at least take a first pass,
right?
You know, and see if there's anything in there. It's red flagging, and be like, ooh, like this is super one-sided, right? You know, and if you're going against Microsoft, that's what you get, right?
Yeah. I don't think you're going to be redlining the Microsoft T's
good
and
luck.
C's. Yeah.
But with a local IT provider, if it's so one-sided, like there's one contract in my market that is offensive in how bad it is.
Yeah.
And like it personally offends me that it exists. and like, but people just aren't reading it, and it's like that's, and so they end up in this 5-year contract that renews anytime they make an adjustment to anything.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what is something that you would say that small business owners assume that IT providers are just doing, and that all of them, it isn't necessarily just a standard of service?
Keeping things actually like modernly up to date. So we call it a standards alignment, right? Everyone assumes that like you set up 365, and of course you're going to keep it up to date.
Yeah.
Not the case in most instances.
Right.
You know, like things drift, things change. Microsoft comes out with new stuff, and most IT providers are never going back and looking at a tenant on a recurring basis. They may go back every once in a while for whatever reason, but honestly, that's more rare than you would think it would be. And to be fair, like that's actually in our base package, we don't include that either. Like we are, you know, our base package, we are literally outsourced desk where you call for help, and you know, if you want that kind of care, you have to go up to the next step. We're clear about it.
Yeah.
You know, to understand like this does not include this thing, and if you don't want to pay for it, because that's an expensive thing. Like we call it we re-onboard a client every year.
Yeah.
And re-onboarding a client every year takes a lot of time, effort, and on both sides.
Yeah.
And so but that's something that most people don't really realize isn't really being done. A lot of times it's set it, forget it, and we're going to deal with it by exception instead of as a comprehensive whole. And to be fair, until recently, it was a very difficult thing to do in the first place. You know, like drift management tools didn't really exist. It was never, you know, it was not a problem our industry was addressing. It's becoming much more addressable and much more, you know, therefore more cost effective to accomplish. But that's something that most business owners or most businesses, when they're dealing with an IT provider, also, they think this is being handled, but it is in fact not.
Yeah, very true. So when you get into a new client for the first time, what's the first thing that you kind of audit to see, you know, where are we?
365.
Okay.
100%. Their Microsoft 365 scenario. It is the biggest exposure you have as a business these days, bar none. Yeah. You know, the endpoints are these days, like endpoint threats do exist still, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's much harder to penetrate an endpoint now than it is to get through. Because when you're penetrating an endpoint, you're almost always going through 365 anyways.
Yeah.
And so we always start out with 365, where it stands, how it's set up. Does it actually have MFA enabled? Yeah. Sometimes the answer is still no, right? You know, and that is always our biggest initial push, as looking at that, figuring out where that stands, and then start getting that into a better position over time.
Okay. No, that's great. What is one question that every small business owner should be asking when they're interviewing new MSPs?
These days, it really is, how are you going to make us better? How are you going to increase my profit, right? What are you doing besides keeping the plumbing working, right? Keeping the toilets flushing, keeping the lights on, right? You know, what's the step you're going to take to help me navigate this new reality in which with this so fast, the changes are happening so fast. How are you going to help me continue to navigate this going forward? Because that's where we need to be as an industry, right? You know, we just don't need to be like, you know, hey, we got AV on your endpoints and that kind of stuff. We still have to do that. Like, we have to keep things stable. stable, because you can't make things better until they're actually stable and functional. Don't get me wrong, but like that should be table stakes now. The thing they should be asking about is around how you're going to drive my business to be a better business. What's that look like? What kind of partnership collaboration are we going to have? Because the fact of the matter is, there's no other partnership you're going to have as a business that can sink your business as fast or make your business better as fast as we can. None. And it's only going to get more important as the time goes on, right? Because with technology's pace changing, yes, there are going to be some businesses that opt out of the IT model, outsource IT model, and bring it in-house. And they're going to be able to do that. But there's still going to be a lot of them who don't want to deal with the headache, having to hire that person, all that kind of stuff, understanding that knowledge in-house. Because if you only have one person, that person leaves, you're up a creek, right? And so you're still going to have that kind of scalability issues. And so as a business owner, you need to be asking, what are you doing to help me navigate this, help use these efficiencies that can theoretically be done, in my business, so that I can, make sure processes are done correctly every time, or at least more every time, right? Come here, like nothing's perfect, right? But how can I make those processes better? Like understanding actual business analysis and business case use and all that kind of stuff that honestly most IT providers can't do or are not talking about doing, and the skill sets they don't have, and those are the ones that are going to cause problems for you long term, because if it's not doing that now, it's going to become more and more difficult to stay afloat. Yeah. We both know, I'm not going to say names, but we both know one of our friends who does this business with us, who has driven absolutely massive amount of profit to his bottom line in the past year because he's so heavily invested in AI and automation. So he's at the point where in his space where he lives, right, where his local market, he could theoretically drop his price point to the point where he puts all his competitors out of business and he can still make money doing it.
Yeah.
And so like, if that happens to you in your industry, can you respond to it, right? Because this isn't a snap your fingers and make it happen overnight scenario.
Right.
This takes planning, and as you know as well, like AI and automation is only going to work if you actually have the framework or the groundwork in place on your processes, understanding how they flow, what's a good idea, what's a bad idea. We both heard the speaker yesterday who didn't do that, and the pain it cost her in her business. And so like this isn't a these are transformational things you can do. They don't also they shouldn't happen all at once, and you can't come up from 0 to 100 instantaneously. So you've got to start working on that today.
Yeah, I love the focus on business outcomes, because I think that's what matters the most to small businesses.
That's right.
Like,
you don't care what your AV is,
exactly.
right? You don't care. You only want to make sure your computers are protected and you can go back to doing what you're doing. So you don't care about like all the stuff that we care about, because that's our job to care about it, right? But that's not your job.
Yeah.
And so like we have to be driving the outcomes in the business in a positive direction, not just basically playing neutral, right?
Yeah, it's so true. What's the biggest myth of IT services?
I'm a client experience certified professional. I spend all the time talking about client experience, thinking about client experience. I go to client experience conferences, which is a fun thing for me. And I was at this client experience conference years ago. And this is what was something really solidified for me as a business owner. And we're at this conference, and it's primarily geared to the architecture, engineering, construction space. So I'm in there, and like I'm by far the smallest company. I was like 5 or 6 employees at the time, and like the next smallest company is like 400 employees, right? And so I'm talking to this person, and she works for like this large engineering firm. This national, it's like 4,000 employees or whatever. Some massive firm. I remember who it was, but I don't remember what firm she worked for. And we're talking about what do you do, right? And we're at this baseball game. It was it wasn't one of the major leagues. It was one of their feeder leagues, baseball games, and it was in Durham, North Carolina. It's a great ballpark, and we're chatting, eating hot dogs and stuff. And I was like, I help businesses with their IT. I keep that I'm an outsourced IT department. And kind of described how I used to describe myself back then. And she's like, oh, well, we have a great IT department. I said, oh, you have a great IT department. So they never talk down to you? And she goes, no, they only sometimes talk down to me. So
only sometimes.
So in our industry, right, like we have this thing where like sometimes being talked down to is an okay thing. Like it's not even okay. It's great, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that the biggest myth is that that's not an okay behavior. We have inherent worth as people by simply dint of being people. And also we are in a service business. Like we should be serving these people. We should be, and so, the biggest myth is I have to accept that. that had to be accepted being belittled or talked down to, and it has gotten better over the years. But you still end up with a lot of scenarios where people just don't care, right? You call in, and they don't care about you as a person, and that's indicative of a variety of things. So that's also still wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that sets apart I'm going to say a good business period from a mediocre business or whatever is caring, right? And if you're dealing with a large company, it's hard to get that kind of thing. You can, but it's more difficult, and that's why I used to work in large corporations.
Yeah.
So I understand.
Yeah.
And I run a small business for a reason. But
Yeah.
that's the relationship. I think is going to become more important as time goes on, as AI becomes more prevalent in society. People are going to realize that human connection is more important. The caring is more important, and then you can get it. We're not the only company doing this by any stretch of the imagination. But that's a thing that makes a big difference, and it makes a big difference from a business point of view, because if your employees don't like the people they're talking to on the phone, in that inevitable scenario where they click on that link and they shouldn't have, they're going to pause, and they're going to run mental math, and it's going to be, if I call, Bill's going to berate me.
Yeah.
Or Bill's going to sigh and be disappointed in me, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to actually, you think it won't, but I guarantee it will, because they are people too. It's going to make them go slower to report a problem that could have been solved very quickly with very limited damage into a much bigger issue, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to make sure that, from a security point of view, or even just a usability point of view, if they have this small little problem, they're like, I don't have to deal with this, guys.
Yeah.
Right? That small little problem is interfering with their work. It's interfering with making them as productive as they could be, or potentially it's masking something bigger they're not even aware of. And so you want to make sure that relationship is as frictionless as possible.
Yeah, and I always relate it to, you can judge your customer experience by how people feel when they have to pick up the phone to call.
That's
you.
right.
That's
right.
Like, do they feel like they're dreading this phone call? Are they excited to talk to you? Are they just meh?
Right.
What's the emotion when they think of your company?
That's right. Yeah. And no one's gonna be perfect, right? We
Yeah.
all understand this. Everyone's gonna make mistakes. Everyone's gonna have problems. But if the overall sentiment is not one of positive, that's probably a long-term issue for you. If you care about your employees. If you don't care about your employees, then okay.
Yeah.
That's all. But if you want to be making sure your employees have positive experiences, because that's important for them, right?
Yeah.
If there's a part of their job or part of their day that they just hate dealing with, to some extent, suck it up and work, right? That's a thing. But the less of that you can have, the better off you're going to have, be with your employees, and the better results you're going to get from them, because people who enjoy their job more generally do a better job at it.
Yeah. And to kind of wrap this up, what would you say is something that, technology-wise, that you've seen a client implement that has truly changed their business for the better, hopefully?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, let's talk about that. A fun one we had is we have a medical practice that went from paper charts to digital charts. Seems like a pretty simple thing, right?
Yeah.
But it actually made a huge difference. And they had these little tablets now, and they do charting and everything like that. They're not like they do Botox-y kind of things, they're aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
And so that made a pretty big difference in how they operate, how efficient they are at things, the kind of care they can do with the clients, because everything is now standardized, so it's easier to go from patient to patient, easier to review patient notes and all that kind of stuff. It's a fairly small thing. So basically what it ended up finding is basically an electronic charting company that was like paper but just on tablets.
Yeah.
And so it didn't change their workflow a whole lot because of not having to carry paper around and file things and all this kind of stuff. It actually made a significant difference in how they felt about their work, and how their interaction went with the patient in the room, because now you're flipping through paper and it just seems weird, right? But
Yeah.
For them, they're a very aesthetic, that's minded place, a very client focused place, and so those little things can actually make a significant difference in the client experience and how your clients actually perceive your brand and feel about spending money with your brand.
Yeah. So they become more efficient, and that efficiency is noticeable to clients,
Right, and it looks higher end. Like once again, they're a luxury thing. They know they're a luxury thing, right?
Yeah.
No one needs. Very few people need Botox, right?
Yeah.
And it's never in your face if you need it. And so like they understand that they're a luxury item, and therefore they're not the only one. And now like dentists can do it in my state and all this kind of stuff. So like it's broadened, and so like. They have to make sure that the appeal is, so they spend like a lot of time and money thinking about how things look and work inside of their business in a way that a lot of companies, like, and a manufacturer just doesn't care, right? They're making things, not the case for them. And so like doing this one kind of small shift, changed it from a little old school kind of thing to a much more modern, sleek experience, which is important for their client base.
Yeah, no, that's great. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way? LinkedIn or?
LinkedIn's always great. Post things on there, personally, professionally. I'm kind of open book.
Sure.
You go to our website, SawyerSolutionsLLC.com. You can shoot me an email. It's Benji, like the dog, .Sawyer, like Tom, at SawyerSolutionsLLC.com. We got a fun phone number. It's 844-4IT-PROS.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah,
That's fancy.
I'm sort of we're the only Benji Sawyer on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find. So that's, come to events. I show up at weird places. I might be rapping, you never know.
Yeah.
So
cool, I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.